Hello and welcome to Latter-day Profiles. I'm Brian Howard. We're here in Paris, France, and joining me today is Jean-Claude Vanaquer. Jean-Claude, welcome. So good to have you.
Nice to meet you. Nice to be here with you.
Yes, I made your acquaintance recently as I was making plans to come and visit and was referred to you. And you've been such a gracious help. Thank you so much for helping to set things up and got me connected with some of the great interviews that people will see as they watch these over a few weeks about the people we've met here in Paris. Jean-Claude is heavily involved with the Institute, currently the Institute Director for the Paris Institute, and we'll find out a little bit more about your background. In fact, Jean-Claude, where are you from? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay, I was born in France, in the Champagne area. That's the place where we had big battles during First World War, like you've heard of Verdun, for example. So I was born there, and I lived there till I was maybe 5 or 6 years old. Then my parents moved quite a lot around France. And then we had a big change of life in 1971. We migrated to Australia.
Oh.
Yeah. My parents wanted to change their life, and so they left to Australia on the migrant program.
And what were they doing in Australia? How did they go? What was that like for you?
Oh, it was a great place to be in. Especially we really changed our life in Australia because the missionaries came and knocked on our door, and we were converted to the gospel in Australia. So that was a big change.
What do you remember about that with the missionaries and joining the church?
Oh, I was 10 years old. I was just playing around with them. You know, they were kind of fun. And it was when I turned 14 and I started seminary, Book of Mormon. That was when I started realizing there was much more to church than just social activities. Yeah.
You know, I'm probably in conversation with your parents maybe later on. What was it that attracted them to the gospel? Have you talked about that?
It's mainly my dad was he was craving for spirituality, and he wasn't satisfied with the Catholic Church. So he was very open to the message of missionaries, and he had a very special spiritual experience when the missionaries came for the first time. One of the things that really touched him was the message about eternal families. That's what really got him going.
Really got him going.
Yeah.
So tell me, so at 14, Book of Mormon started to become a real thing, a little bit more serious. Did you have desires to serve a mission? What were you thinking about church at that point?
Well, when I was 17, someone came and asked me, do you want to go on a mission? And I said, no, not really. I have other plans. I had missionaries. I was a good soccer player at the time. And I had missionaries say, hey, you should come to BYU and play on the soccer team and study in BYU. So, I was making my passport and and trying to get a visa. And then, someone came and asked me, well, have you thought about going on a mission? I said, no, not really. Well, maybe you should think about it. And kind of was in my mind all the time. And so I decided if I want to go on a mission, I want to know why. And I want to be sure my place is there. So, I really started reading the Book of Mormon, getting, obeying commandments in a stricter way than I was doing. And, I prayed to have a testimony at the Book of Mormon, and it came. I decided to go on a mission. So when I was 19, I went on a mission. I was called in the Paris Toulouse mission.
What was that experience like for you?
Oh, it helped me understand how the gospel works. It's just not a series of commandments, but it's more a way of finding strength, a way of coping with emotions, how the Holy Spirit, how the atonement of Jesus Christ can really help us find solutions, find strength, find support in our lives.
That's interesting. I served a mission in France and loved the people. It was difficult sharing the gospel a lot. I imagine it's probably similar, but yet at the same time, of my own testimony, but similar for you. And how was it as you were trying to teach people the gospel?
It was hard to find people to teach, so we spent a lot of time trying to find people. Yeah. When we had someone to teach, we were very happy. Didn't convert a lot of people, but as you said, I think my mission converted me to Christ.
So post-mission, where did you go from there?
So post-mission, what I do, I had my missionary service to do. So 2 years of mission and then 1 year of military service.
Okay.
So I did that. I was on a boat an anti-submarine boat, and I was based in the Mediterranean.
Oh, wow.
So I had some pretty interesting experiences as I went to Lebanon during the 1982
Oh, wow.
kind of clash between the Palestinians and the Israelis. We went to Beirut just as Arafat and his Palestinian militia had left, and went around a little bit, Cyprus, Egypt, hunting, maybe I should not say this, but hunting Russian submarines who were trying to get weapons to the Syrians.
Wow, it sounds like a crazy time. What a change of pace, right? Going from missionary service to
That was
service.
pretty interesting.
So yeah, that's something that especially in the U.S. when I used to have it back in the day when no longer required military service. But so do you, as far as choosing, can you do that before like a mission? How do you place?
Yeah, you could choose before or after doing a mission at the time. Now the problem is solved because we don't have military service anymore.
Well,
in France, we have a professional army now.
Professional army, okay. Oh, good. I didn't know. I haven't kept track. I think back when I was a missionary, it's still required back in the 80s.
Yeah. It was still. It was President Chirac in the 90s who stopped that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
A lot of happy young men.
Yeah.
So you finished your military service. Did you know what you wanted to do career-wise? What were you thinking?
No, because I hadn't gone to university yet, so I kind of did some little jobs here and there, and until I met someone who believed in me and hired me as a regional director for a laminate company. I went to a kitchen making company, and what I did was develop the sales in an area, and I was trained a lot, the salesman, and develop the sales with the people who sold our products. That's what I did for about 10 years, until I had an opportunity to be hired by the church as a S&I coordinator.
And when did you meet your wife? Did you meet her when you were working there, post-mission?
Okay. Oh, that's an interesting story. Shows you how the Lord sometimes directs our lives. Coming back from my mission, I went home at one stake conference. The stake conference I just got back home from my mission. I was attending stake conference. I think it was on a Saturday afternoon, and I just went out to go to the restroom, and in the corridor I crossed this young girl. She was 15 and I was 21. And something happened, it's not love at first sight, it wasn't that, but kind of like a recognition, like who's that person? Oh, like as if you thought you'd met her before, okay? And no, just crossed and that's it. And in fact, I didn't know who she was, but she knew my family very well because she was my sister's best friend.
Oh.
Yeah. But she hadn't seen any pictures of me. She didn't know who I was. So she ran to my sister and said, I just met this boy. It's interesting. Interesting thing happened, and my sister was all like, who is it? Who is it? And so she looked for me in the assembly and pointed out to my sister where I was. And my sister was really disappointed. And went, oh no, it's my brother. So, and then, she was pretty young. Maybe I was not mature enough for having a relationship. And she was too young anyway. So I got to know her through the years, I would take her in my car with my sisters and go to church activities and everything. And then one day I saw the light. And so we got fiancé and we got married just a few months later.
That's awesome.
That's the story.
Yeah, that's a great story. So you were working, doing the kitchenware laminate sales, training people. How did the opportunity with the church come about? Okay,
so I was serving as a member of the High Council in charge of Institute at the time, and there was a position that was being opening in the town where I lived at the time. It was Lyon, and so I was inquiring to the state president about who was the person who was going to be hired to take care of the institute. And he said, well, we don't have one yet. I think they're in a hiring process. And then he looked at me quite strangely and said, did you apply? I said, no, I had no intention of working for the church. I heard it's a good employment career. You don't get a big salary or anything. And he looked at me and he said, you should apply. You should try and get the employment. So went, no way. I just changed work just a year ago, and things were going pretty good for me. And I went home, talked to my wife, and she said, "Oh, you should apply. You should apply. You should apply." So I did send a letter. Just a few days later, they called me, say, "We want to come see you." And no, hold on, no. They told me, "Well, we're sorry, your profile is pretty interesting, but we have someone that we want to, we've gone through the process and we have someone for that position." I said, "Okay, fine." I was pretty happy about that. And they said, "Well, we'll keep your profile for another time, maybe." I said, "Yeah, right, sure, that's what they always say." And in fact, 2 weeks later, they called me and said, "Well, we want to come and see you." And so they came, had an interview, and then just 2 weeks later, they said, "We're going to send your what's the name in English?
Resume.
Your resume. Well, in fact, they chose me and they said, "We're going to send your name to be hired at Salt Lake."
Ah, gotcha.
And so they came back to me and said, "Okay, you're hired. Now you've got to go to Frankfurt, have an interview with President Uchtdorf." Mm-hmm. He was serving as the area president at the time. So I did, and then I started working for SNI in August 1997. So it will be soon 27 years now.
Wow, yeah. Wow. So a big change in obviously work.
Oh, yeah.
How did you feel about it initially? Was it a major? I mean, it would have been very different than what you've been used to.
Well, I thought, first of all, I'm hired to be a Seminary and Institute coordinator, so I'm going to teach the gospel and spend all my time reading and studying the scriptures. But in fact, that's not what the job is about. You coordinate, you make the programs work, you train teachers, you work with the state presidencies and bishops, and you're just available to bless the lives of the youth and young adults. Mm. So a lot of traveling at the time. Well, since COVID, we've changed our way of working a little bit, but it's really a great blessing. It's been a blessing for me as a person, as a disciple of Christ, and it's also been a blessing for my family. As it has helped me be a better father, and I hope a better husband.
As far as location-wise, so where is that taking you for Seminaries and Institute? Where have you worked at? Okay,
so I was based in Lyon, and I had most of the Swiss. I started with Switzerland, Lyon, and Montpellier, Toulouse, and then they asked me to relocate in Strasbourg. It's up near the German border, and I worked with Switzerland, the east of France, and Belgium. Then I relocated in the north of France, where I worked. For some years or so, I went to England.
Oh.
Yeah, they asked me to go and work in southern England, where I was supervising institute programs in 7 states.
Oh, wow.
When I came back to France, I had Brittany. I've just had most of France, in fact, working with a lot of state people. So I know a lot of church members from everywhere, supervising about 9 states,
oh, wow.
Different states at one time. And in September, they asked me, "Jean-Claude, can you come to Paris and take charge of the Paris Institute?" So
here you are.
Here I am.
And currently you live how far away from Paris?
I live about 160 kilometers. It would be about, 120 miles away from Paris.
Yeah.
So I travel every Thursday to the Institute. About 2 hours and a half, 4 hours when there's traffic jams or tractors in the streets blocking the traffic.
Seems to happen on a regular basis.
Yeah, it happens on a regular basis. And I had a big surprise in January. My director came to me and said, "Jean-Claude, would you like to be the French faculty director in June?" So in June, I will keep the Paris Institute, but I will become also the director of the French Seminary Institute area.
What will that entail? How does that change?
Well, manage other coordinators.
Good.
Tell them, yes, you can go on vacation, and yes, you and authorize their spending, and make sure they are doing good.
Yeah. this definitely is business oriented. We are preaching the gospel, but coordinate things, make sure things happen, stay within budgets and all those good things.
That's it. You understand what it's all about. I will keep a spiritual part, keep teaching.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So that's the wonderful part about it. That's the part I like the most.
Tell me about the young men and women. Obviously, you've had a chance, very different parts of Europe and England. What have you seen with the young men and young women, and the things they're challenged with, the things that you say, wow, that's pretty amazing? What do you see in the youth?
As the years have gone by, we have seen the challenges they have kind of become more extreme, more important. And one of the main things they are being challenged with is mental health today. Quite a lot of have been subject to depression, sometimes clinical depressions. We've seen the numbers go higher. A lot of them are kind of doubt a lot about the future. There is eco anxiety. Afraid about the future of the planet, what's going to happen, everything. And that's kind of general, But one thing that is really interesting about most of the youth in the church is when they understand what the gospel is about, they find hope, even if the future seems bleak and dark. They're able to find hope, and we have some really talented and really strong young adults and youth.
What kind of things do you do? Obviously, there's an institute. Well, what kind of things do they do? What kind of interactions do you see with the young men and women as they gather together?
Well, we have been for several years. We have FSY now in our areas, and that's creating a lot of good for the youth. Meeting together, feeling strength in numbers also, and it's interesting how they come back from that kind of those kind of activities with the feeling and the desire to feel at home what they have felt in those gatherings, because the objective of FSY is to have spiritual experiences, and they feel the spirit, and sometimes they don't identify it. So that's a challenge they have, also identifying what the spirit, how the Holy Ghost speaks to them, and how it affects them, affects their feelings, their thoughts. And when they have those kind of experiences, it can be also in a seminary class or in a Sunday school class or whatever, they have the desire to take that back and have the same kind of experiences at home where they live. Sometimes they don't connect. Well, I can feel the spirit when I have these kind of activities. So that's the challenge. They think, we have to be 100 or 200 or 300 too, and we have to have good teachers for that. But we try to make them realize that you can have those kind of experiences by the things you do yourself.
How did having the temple, the Paris temple open, has that had an impact on the activities?
Yeah, that's had an impact. And I see when we organize, in fact, 4th of May, we're going to have our second session of baptisms for young single adults. Like, you can see the enthusiasm. They bring their cards, they get baptisms for their own ancestors, and it creates a really the group effect, and it really helps them also find that strength. A lot of them have heard and understand and want to follow President Nelson's invitation to make the temple the center of your life. A lot of them are preparing themselves for that. So
that's awesome.
That's great.
Interesting. I teach at BYU Idaho. There's an interesting dynamic. The young people don't want to admit that they would like to get married at some point until they find that someone, and then it's game's on. How is it with the young single adults and finding companions and eternal companions?
That's also a challenge. A lot of them are afraid of making the wrong choice, so they kind of I don't know. They wait. They wait and wait and wait. Trying to find the ideal person. Or having Angel Moroni appear to them saying that's the person you need to get married to. So that's when you see the average age for marriage goes up and up. Now I think it's about 32 years old. people get married. And I think one of our apostles gave a talk recently on that to young single adults. The BYU. Telling you, okay.
Elder Oaks had talked about.
Yeah, it was Elder
that.
Oaks, I think. Yeah, he talked about that.
Yeah, he talked about hanging out versus dating. Actually,
Yeah.
Encouragement.
And we were told that we need to amplify the words of apostles and prophets to young single adults. So we're trying to amplify that without scaring them too much. And it's interesting because sometimes we have lessons or we have workshops on marriage, and they always say, "Oh, are you going to talk about marriage again?" But those workshops and those classes are often the ones that have the most people attending.
Yeah,
they have a lot of questions on that. They need to, they need to talk about it, and they need to be reassured about marriage.
Tell me, as far as your career and being able to work in Seminary and Institute, how's that impacted your family and your kids?
Well, the bad side is sometimes they tell you, "Well, you're never there."
You have to travel a lot, don't you?
Yeah. Well, we used to. Yeah. We used to travel a lot, and usually in the evening, that's when the family gets together. So my wife often was alone in the evenings with my children. Saturdays also was often taken up by work because we would go out and teach Super Saturdays and have activities and things like that. But the good part is you study well. You get to study the gospel in a way that maybe helped me teach family. Sometimes, well, I don't know about the impact because one of them doesn't go to church today, and one is active and the other one is kind of in between. So you tell yourself, well, maybe I wasn't such a good teacher after all, but you learn to kind of take a step back and say, okay, accept the decisions and looking back, you can always say, well, if I hadn't had that job, I wouldn't be the person I am, which I think it is because it's closely linked to the gospel.
Yeah.
So as you teach the gospel, if you want to have an impact, you need to live it.
Yeah.
So, but I don't do it because of the job. I don't live the gospel because I'm employed by the church and I need to have a temple recommend. I do it because I know it's true, and I know it's for my good, and only I know that it's for my good, but I know it's made me a better person, so, yeah. The impact on my family, even if I wasn't there all the time, has been positive. I've seen many times where, when the Lord takes things in His hands.
Thanks for sharing that, by the way. That's agencies sometimes seems overrated, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But that's the way it's given. For people watching, primarily, say there's a lot in the U.S. Some interesting insights into the gospel and the church in France. You've been able to see across Europe how the church functions, boards, things. What would you share with them? Someone's ask you, how are things different? How are they the same?
Well, if you go to Utah, I was in Utah just 2 weeks ago, and you have a majority of church members. And often when I go to Utah, the first thing I say, "Oh, there's a chapel here. Oh, there's another one here. There's another one here." And not only chapels, but temples. I mean, we attended the temple of Provost City Center. Then we went to the Saratoga Temple. We went to the what's the name of the temple? Well, I mean, you see all these temples, and then President Nelson announces Lehigh and West Jordan South, and it's incredible because there's already lots of temples there, and we have just one temple in France, and we have to travel from all over France just to that one place, and you have so much choices, and the temples are full. It's hard to get an appointment for a session, and here, well, you have days where it's pretty full, but we have to learn to live the gospel as a minority, where most of the members in Utah, well, maybe that's not the case in Ohio or other places. But we have the impression that, it's, I don't know if it's harder or not, because every situation has its own challenges. But France is a non-Christian country today. Christianity is kind of, don't want to hear about it. While the States is still a God-fearing country. Well, it's going down a little bit, I think, but you still have that trust in God and that kind of respect for sacred things, but we don't have here anymore. And so it's often challenging to navigate through a life in a country that doesn't believe in God and sometimes even fights Christianity.
Interesting situation. Well, Matt, I really appreciate you taking the time, Jean-Claude, to talk about your background and your membership of the church and being a member here in France. It's really fascinating. Thank you so much for taking some time to chat.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.